in that respect. Another thing is our hangout, our December hangout. It was amazing. I loved it. Oh, I see we are live. Welcome, YouTube, to our first discussion of the Atheist Hangout in 2025. You're all very, very welcome. Today we are discussing freedom of speech versus censorship. Freedom of speech versus censorship. Of course, the reason why we picked this topic was because of the goings-on that are happening in our country right now in Kenya. There have been some youth that have been abducted, and this is tied to how they're exercising their freedom of speech, and those abductions have been related to censorship. Okay, so that is the background. And one of us has even voiced concerns about our safety. He's wondering whether we are safe discussing this topic, given the political climate in our country and what has been happening to people who voice their opinions. So I believe it is even more pertinent for us to dissect this topic, freedom of speech versus censorship. Now, our official moderator was supposed to be Secular Kenyan, aka Maurice, but he told me that work has gotten so tight, so he might not be able to join us. Or if he does, he'll do so really late. So we can't count on him. We just have to move on without him. I'll hold brief for him. And given the fact that this was impromptu, I did not have subtopics or questions. Maybe we can be guided by what others say, the preceding speakers. Maybe they can guide how the discussion will go. So as is the norm, we like to start with definitions. So if the members can oblige me, please let's define what is freedom of speech and what is censorship. And why is it important to have freedom of speech? Let's define freedom of speech, censorship, and why is freedom of speech important? Please raise your hands. Great. I see Morioki's hand is up. Go ahead, Morioki.
Thanks, Dr. I think for me, freedom of speech is I can say what I want to. I'm free to express myself as long as I hurt nobody's feelings, but I can say what I want. Yeah. And that it's important because, I think it's just I can say what I want without hurting anybody's feelings or without interfering with somebody else's rights. Yeah, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Morioki, for that contribution. Now, Morioki has added something. He said freedom of speech is the right to express your ideas freely. But he added some two caveats. He said without hurting someone's feelings or without. The other one was harming someone.
Yeah, okay, harming also interfering with somebody's rights.
Okay, without interfering with someone's rights. So he has added those two qualifications, hurting someone's feelings, and he has also spoken about infringing on someone's rights. You should have the freedom to air what you want without infringing on another person's right. That is his understanding. Do we agree with Morioki's definition? Great. I see El Maestro's hand is up. Go ahead, El Maestro.
Before I give mine, Murioki, I don't agree with your definition, because if you say without hurting someone's feelings, that is not freedom of speech. Because if you have to speak, if your speech has to be limited to someone's feelings, that is not freedom of speech. In my opinion, freedom of speech is saying whatever is in your mind without feeling threatened about the consequences of your words. For me, that's why what I understand by free speech. Having the freedom to say what you want without feeling threatened, or without feeling threatened that these words will have consequences. Will have negative consequences. For me, that is free speech.
Dorcas, can I respond? Dorcas, can I
Yes,
respond?
for 1 minute. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, Maestro. When you put a picture of somebody dead, somebody in a coffin, that's for me. I mean that's for me. That's not right. That's unacceptable. When you put somebody in a coffin. So thanks.
El Maestro, you can continue with your contribution, or you can rebut if you so wish.
Okay, so Muruki, you are talking about an image. Are you talking about an image or
yes, an image, image, of somebody in a coffin. You know what happened? Yeah, somebody was put he's dead in a coffin.
Yeah,
that's extreme.
Yes, I know. Yes, I know. Yeah, even if it's extreme, but so if you see your picture in a coffin, you will feel what do you say? You'll feel it will hurt your feelings. If you see a picture of you in a coffin, it will hurt your feelings.
No one likes death, Maestro. No, most human beings don't like dying.
For me, if I see my picture in a coffin, I'll actually laugh. I won't be hurt, because I know death is inevitable. One day I'll be there. So that mentality is that of a Christian over a religious person. That that those who are if you see a picture of yours of you in a coffin, and your feelings are hurt, is like you are afraid of death. Death is inevitable. Everyone will one day your body, whether you like it or not, one day your body will be in that coffin. So for me,
Maestro,
how is that
Maestro,
hurting someone's feelings?
Maestro, most people don't want to die. Most people want to live. And until we are old, we want to live. Most of us want to live.
Whether you want to live, even if you are until 100 years, eventually your body will be in a coffin one day. There is only enough. There is only little time that your body can sustain life in this planet. Inevitably, your body will be 6 feet under. So why do you tell me that your feelings will be hurt when you just see your image in a coffin?
Morioki, allow El Maestro to continue with this contribution. Because you were still to talk about why it is important, why freedom of speech is important.
Yeah, freedom of speech. Okay, I only had the definition. Okay, the freedom of why freedom of speech is important. It's so that in maybe on the national level, first of all, that critics can be free to give their views about the government. That is on a national level, but on the ground level, like maybe in a family or in a where at least freedom of speech, it allows other people to tell you your mistakes if you are wrong. If you don't allow free speech, you can be wrong in a lot of times, but people are afraid of telling you that, because you have limited their freedom of speech. So freedom of speech is important so that people can freely express whatever is in their their mind, first of all, to critics can be free to criticize the government whenever it's wrong. And also in the ground, maybe in a family, imagine a family where the father cannot be told anything if he is wrong, or or in a company where the boss, you cannot tell the boss anything, even if he has done something wrong. You are not allowed to tell him if whenever he's wrong, because he has limited your free speech. No, the boss it will eventually lead to that company going down, or the family going breaking. So freedom of speech is important. And the main thing why is important is at least people can realize when they are wrong, they can be told. If they have done something wrong, they can be told. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you, and Maestro, for giving us those responses, especially for rebutting Morioki. I feel like El Maestro leans very strongly towards protecting freedom of speech, while Morioki is leaning towards censorship. But we'll delve deeper into the current situation with the Ruto government shortly. But for now, we are still defining freedom of speech, and we are looking at why it is important. Yes, I see ex-Pastor Stano's hand is up. Go ahead, Stano.
Yeah, I think we are dealing with the definition. Freedom of speech is to be allowed to speak whatever you like. You would like to express your opinion in terms of, you can express your worldview about the religion. You can express about politics or economy. So, and we are free to speak. But about the consensus is to restrict from speaking if the kind of speech can be insightful or can bring hatred. For example, in the group or in the society, when a person comes with some don't wants, they offend the people, and that party or that group may end up corrupting. The same case in the government, something we can speak to incite the people, and that can bring a chaos. So that is why for me, I think we also need that censorship to regulate some things, not to go to an extent, just the way like Morioki have been saying, although he just portray about the COVID as if it's very bad thing. But for me, I don't think it's a big issue on that. But in terms of politics, as long as thing is not causing chaos, for example, if you speak against the Ruto, or you put a picture that portray about the Ruto, I don't think that will bring any chaos for me, because the people are trying to express how the government is just trying to oppress them, or doing something that is unfair, or unable to fulfill their promises. So they are trying to express their anger because of what the government is doing, but they are not, although even though it can cause some incitement, but we can try to limit in a somehow to avoid any chaos. Thank you.
Oh, I was trying to unmute. I think I'll just stay unmuted to avoid this lag. Great. So Stano has defined freedom of speech, and it's defined censorship, and he has given us the reason why censorship is sometimes necessary. Maybe he disagrees slightly with Morioki on the degree of or the issues that may warrant censorship. We'll get into that shortly, but for now, he has given us those definitions. Great. I see Luchaveleli is here. Welcome, Luchaveleli, what are your definitions for freedom of speech, censorship, and why do you think freedom of speech is important in a society?
Thank you very much, Dorcas. To me, I take freedom of speech just apart from being a definition in itself. I look at it as it's one of the basic human rights. And being treated as a human right, it's also important to note that I don't take it as an absolute human right because yes, it has some limitations. And how I usually define it, I usually say that, it's the right of an individual to express their opinions without censorship or restraint. And it's always protected. We actually have an article of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It's one of them. That is Article 19. So many countries follow this route as well, including Kenya as well. And just as I've said, being a human right, it has its own limitations, which I can expound on them shortly. Then when it comes to censorship, because I don't want to mix the two, I also take censorship as one topic on its own, slightly different, though it's related to freedom of speech. So I take it as the suppression or prohibition of speech, communication, or content deemed objectionable, harmful, or sensitive, either by governments, organizations, and even platforms. So we can have censorship at a national level, we can have censorship at a corporate level, and even an institution in itself can also have its own, it can censor some things here and there. And how I take for the importance of freedom of speech, just as someone had actually said before, we can have constructive criticism. This can actually happen when people can express their opinions without, coming after them. So yes, and if you're dealing with competent people, they won't actually come after you because you're criticizing them. They will have to do better because you're expressing your opinions on probably the ills we have in society and all that. And just apart from that, it's also one of the, it's a foundation of a democracy. You can't go around telling everyone that you're a Democrat and you're out there coming for people who are criticizing you. It's weird. It doesn't make any sense. And freedom of speech also comes, it's one of the catalysts for progress and innovation. When you look throughout history, whether it's artists, writers, innovators, if they were killed, much wouldn't really be going on in society because when everyone tries to express their opinions, either through words, art, music, poems, and all that, they wouldn't be existing because people will be abducting them, killing them here and there. So no progress will actually be going on. And thirdly, I'd say yes, if you're looking at it as a human right, it's important that human rights are protected. So if you value free speech, it's equally showing that you value human rights as a whole. So yes, it's one of them. And also it's all about social cohesion and understanding. People understand each other verbally through speech and all that. So if you're banning free speech, if you're telling women not to talk out there because they are women, and we know the countries that do that, so it doesn't really make any sense. And just as I've said, it's one of the tools or defense against tyranny. If you have someone who's trying to silence you and you're out there talking, yes, well and good, And also, I can look at it as, it's one of the things that foster for economic development. Investors will actually be interested to come to a place where people are free to express themselves. People are not traumatized when they want to talk, and then someone tells them, you'll get abducted and all that. And also, yes, I can as well maybe we can talk about its own limitation because yes, it's a whole mouthful on its own. But I also want to probably shed some light on it again, in as much as yes, it's very relevant with the current state of the situation. But it's also important to appreciate the fact that I think it's sort of a global phenomenon, not just in Kenya. When you look at, for example, what Facebook is now doing, Trump is coming into power. Is it this month that he's getting sworn in? And initially we had censorship. And now, yes, there's free speech. In as much as personally I'm for free speech and all that, I'm slightly worried because, it's like free speech again, it will sort of look like absolute in social media because we know why. And one of the dangers of absolute free speech without some limitations is you will be dealing with misinformation, disinformation, and when you're dealing with sensitive issues, when you're dealing with people who incite others and all that, racism, tribalism and all that, when free speech goes unchecked, now you'll have problems. So to me, I say we equally need the two. In as much as I'm pro free speech, we also need censorship at some level, though not absolute censorship, but someone who was saying that, you know what, let's censor you because you're hurting my feelings and all that. That's petty. That doesn't make any sense. And also, even in the Kenyan constitution, there is actually no offense when even insulting the president. There's no such a crime as that. You're free to express it. It's just an opinion. So you can imagine, why are you afraid of someone's opinion? It's just an opinion. It's not like a dagger or a bullet or a sniper. That's an opinion. So it doesn't make sense to have those grounds for censorship. But yes, censorship makes sense if there are some valid, reasonable grounds on why it should exist. So that's all I can say for now. Thank you.
Well said, Eugene. I think you gave a very elaborate response on freedom of speech and censorship. And in fact, we are going to look at the limits of freedom of speech the next time. So let me also give my understanding of freedom of speech and its importance. Freedom of speech, I think El Maestro captured it, as well as Luceveleli, even ex-Pastor Stano. Morioki started out well, but the moment he introduced the word of feelings, now you neutralized everything. Because the dictionary defines freedom of speech as the right to express your ideas or opinions without interference from external parties. They could be the government, they could be powerful individuals or corporations, without interference or retaliation. So just when you can freely express your ideas. And these ideas are usually expressed in the form of words, in a verbal form. So that means maybe a video of you, or an audio recording if it is a podcast, or a radio. And it can also be in the form of performative pieces, like a play or a movie. You all know how we experience the censorship of the movie. There was a lesbian movie. I forget what it's called, but the Communication Commission of Kenya censored the lesbian movie, and that actually made it even more famous.
It's called Rafiki.
Thank
Rafiki.
you, Santi. Yes, Rafiki. So by censoring that creative expression, they made it more, should we say, notorious or popular. They made it more popular in that regard. That was not freedom of speech when they did that. Then there was also some other play, I think back in the 2010s. I'm forgetting what it's called, something blood. I'm forgetting the name of the play, but it had been forbidden from being performed until it was taken to court, and the Supreme Court decided that it is illegal to ban the play. So the play was performed, and it even went to State House, where the president had to listen to it. Yes, the president was the one that had issues with that play. So yeah, it can take all those forms, freedom of speech. When you're speaking either directly to an audience, whether it is recorded, audio, video, or it is written. That's where Twitter, X, X comes in, and all these other social media platforms that are happening. Now, I allow me to bring in the legal component, because the right of freedom of expression or freedom of speech is enshrined in the Kenyan Constitution, specifically Article 33, which states that all Kenyans have the freedom of expression, including the right to, 1, seek, receive, or share information or ideas. 2, to be artistically creative. By banning that play, or by banning the movie Rafiki, they were infringing on this Article 33. And then 3, academic freedom of freedom of scientific research. So if you try to prevent our medics or our scientists from researching about stem cell research or some other controversial, so some other politically interesting research, then you are infringing on that right, that freedom of speech. What else? Okay, censorship. Censorship is defined as a process or system in which the authority limit the ideas that people are allowed to express and prevents books, artworks, films, documents, video recordings, etc., from being expressed. Yeah, in essence, censorship is the suppression of ideas. Why is this important? I believe most of you have captured why freedom of speech is important, what El Maestro said about correcting someone when they are wrong. If you want to live in a free society or in a society that is just, where truth prevails, then it is essential to have freedom of speech. If you're not allowed, if you are not allowed to criticize someone because they are a figure of authority. Now, like the example El Maestro gave of the father, the draconian or authoritarian father, then that's when bad ideas thrive. If you want for there to be progress, if you want there to be fairness and justice, then you need to have freedom of speech. I would like to challenge members to look for the book 1984, because in the book they said that there was a ministry of truth which was run by the government. And it got to a point where the ministry of truth would compel you to say things that are not true. There was one person who was asked to say how many fingers are these in front of you? Obviously there are 5, but he was whipped and whipped. Initially he's told the truth, but because there was no freedom of speech in that society, then he was told, you must say there are 4 fingers. He's like, no, but there are 5. They continued beating him up until he succumbed and said there are 4. So in defense of truth, if we want a society which lives based on truth, then we need to freely express our ideas. We need to have that right, that freedom of speech. Additionally, it is essential in a multicultural society, because in a multicultural society, we will always have different perspectives. In Kenya, we have Muslims, we have Christians, we have atheists, and everybody should be free to express their opinion about any of those perspectives. We have various ethnicities in our country, and the same is true of all other nations in the world. Maybe they might not have different ethnicities, they might have different races, or they might have just other cultural differences among them. So for there to be harmony in that society, we need to be able to allow a divergence of opinions, okay? I think it's also important to have freedom of speech in order to build mental resilience. And what I mean here is, if you live in a society where you are coddled, unabembelezwa, that your feelings must not be hurt. This is why I am so against that definition Morioki introduced. Freedom of speech should not include hurting other people's feelings. that is so flimsy and fickle. Anybody can be hurt by anything. It is so subjective. I can be hurt by you talking ill of meat eating. I can be hurt about you saying that women should not wear this or they should wear that. Everybody should have a right to express their opinions. Ideas are just ideas. Ideas are not violence. Okay? Ideas are not violence. So by you trying to protect people's feelings, you infantilize them. You make them mentally immature. In fact, there's a guy who has written a book in the States. It's called The Coddling of the American Mind. And he says that unfortunately, there has been that negative pattern that has been happening in the US. And if we went by Morioki's definition, that freedom of speech should limit your ability to hurt people's feelings, then that's the kind of society we would have. So this author says that the recent trajectory in the US has been that when you are a child, as a parent, the parent protects you from things that hurt you. Then when you go to university, you are also protected from divergent opinions, what is considered to be an orthodox idea. That is what you should believe. If you espouse a different idea, that can get you censored. So you start learning that you ought to think in a certain way, that if somebody says something contrary to what you believe, that hurts your feelings and it's terrible. They should be punished for it. So that has been going on in universities. We've had of people who lose their tenure because they hold an unorthodox opinion about perhaps the Palestine-Israel conflict, or they hold gender critical views. As you guys know, personally, I have gender critical views on the transgender issue. So just because you don't toe the line in terms of the mainstream opinion, you are punished. You lose your tenure in university. And the university students start to learn that that's how it should be. Then when you go to work, the HR department becomes your parent. So the university was your parent. Then when you're working, the HR department becomes your parent. They also protect you from divergent ideas, from opposite ideas to what you have. So if somebody holds a different unorthodox opinion about a certain issue, they are punished for it. And it coddles your mind. It infantilizes you. It makes you a child. You need to grow up. You need to build mental resilience and have the ability to engage with someone who holds different views from your own. You are a Muslim. I am an atheist. I should be able to tell you my criticisms about Islam without you getting angry at me and without you claiming that I need to be arrested or punished because of that opinion. It's just an idea. We shouldn't keep people from expressing their ideas. That's the bottom line. That's where I stand on this issue of freedom of speech. Now that we have gotten that out of the way, I would like us to get into limits of freedom of speech before we look into the current issue of Ruto and Gen Zs and the Gen Z abductions. We'll get into that subsequently. But first, when should we limit freedom of speech? When is censorship okay? I think Luchaveleli had alluded to it. He had touched a bit on it, but now let's get into it deeper. When should we curtail the freedom of speech, someone's freedom of speech? Or in your opinion, are you a freedom of speech absolutist? Do you think it should just go on indefinitely? Anybody should be able to say anything under the sun? Or what are the limits? I see Morioki's hand is up. Go ahead, Morioki.
Okay, thanks, Dorcas. I think let's use a real example. this thing of feelings, I think if we are honest to ourselves, no one likes to die. Most of us want to live as long as we can. So now I'll say like Ruto, when you put him in a coffin like that, that's just, you see, his kids, his wife, his relatives, his friends, if they see him in a coffin, that's extreme. Okay, feelings, okay, I'm using that, okay, maybe I can change feelings, but now use Ruto in a coffin. What do you think the family will think when they see him in a coffin like that? We'll all die, but there's a time for death. Then I want to ask El Maestro a question, if he knows Madonna. El Maestro, do you know Madonna? El Maestro? Madonna.
The musician.
Yes, you know her.
Yeah, I know her.
Yeah, you know, she's aged, and she's trying to hide her age. She keeps on doing surgeries. She behaves like when she was young. But suppose you put her in a coffin just to show that she's old and she should act her age. That will make sense. I'm saying it's right, but that can make sense because I think she's 60 and she acts like when she was young. So if you put an image of her in a coffin to tell her that you're old, man, act your age, that makes sense. But now Ruto, he's still vibrant. It's his first term. Then he's in a coffin. Nah, that's extreme. Thanks.
Okay, I see, Moroki, you want to rush us to the Ruto situation. Allow me to put a pin on that, Morioki. We will address it when we are talking about Ruto, the coffin thing, and people criticizing Ruto using images or silhouette cartoons of Ruto. Let's get into that after talking about the limits of free speech. So even El Maestro, don't answer that question yet. We are going to answer it when we get to that subtopic. So Morioki, hold on a bit. So the next person, ironically, was El Maestro. So I don't know whether you can pick other aspects of the question that don't touch on Ruto, because we'll get to Ruto specifically. We'll give him the attention he deserves in the next subtopic. Maybe you could respond to other aspects that Morioki has given, or you could answer the question that we are all addressing, which are the limits of freedom of speech.
It's okay. Yeah, I actually wanted to answer your question. Then Muruki added one. Okay. So for me, yes, for me, freedom of speech should be absolute. But I agree there should be censorship because human beings are have a lot of human beings have this psychophantic mind of always listening to what leaders will say. And the reason why for me, freedom of speech should be absolute, but censorship is necessary because human beings have this psychophantic nature of just a lot of human beings, especially religious people and also people here in Africa who have these psychophantic minds of always listening to whatever the leader would say, like the people of the people of Luo Nyanza. Everything Raila Odinga says is the gospel. When Raila tells them go right, they go right. In various like in Mombasa, when their leaders tell them, like Joe tells them go left, they go left. Go right, they go right. The same with the Kikuyu in Kamba. That like our people, they have this psychophantic minds of always following whatever the leader tells them. So I think this censorship should be there because a leader can just wake up and tell them they start killing each other, and that will be yes, you are free to speak, but now there are a lot of people who are listening to whatever you say and they do whatever you say. So there should be censorship on that on matters that so that a society can remain peaceful. Because if freedom of speech will be absolute, there are, you have a lot of human beings who are just weak minds, and they always just these psychophantic minds of always like if any leader if a leader says that even if it's from my own tribe that and they tell people that and then I will be like, what are you saying? But no, now there are others who are just akili tu zimeganda kwa viongozi who, when Raila tells them this, go left, they go left. Uhuru tells them go right, they go right. When Ruto tells them this, and so I think freedom of speech on my bottom line for me is freedom of speech should be absolute, but censorship is necessary because leaders it can lead to genocide, because human beings, we have these psychophantic minds of always following whatever leaders say. That's my view.
All right. Thank you, El Maestro. So he has brought out the aspect of incitement to violence. Incitement to violence, like what happened in the post-election violence of 2007/8. Thank you, El Maestro. Next is, I think it was Ndebe first, then Luchaveleli.
Okay, thank you, Dorcas. Happy New Year, everybody. Can you hear me well?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Happy New Year, everybody. This freedom of expression, I don't know why we went to speech. Maybe there's a reason, but because it's a bit wider than just the speech part, because of freedom of expression. And maybe if you had already discussed it, let me know if these ones had been what is included. If you had already discussed it, let me know so that I don't have to bore everybody with going through it again. So we have got the freedom to express your ideas through a variety of media. And I always used to be so annoyed with that Mutua man. And let me tell you, when Mkamba bites on something like that, particularly the administrators, they really can create a rebellion among people, because you could see how what Ezekiel Mutua was going about it, curbing his freedom, this freedom, that freedom. But anyway, that's beside the point. But part of our freedom, it's our freedom to express ourselves through a variety of media. Is it TV? Is it theater? Is it music? Is it all those freedoms? I will come to the limits in a bit, but let us first of all take our liberty with our expressions. And there's also the right to share information, like now what we are doing. We are sharing ideas. Or somebody can bring information here and say, this is what Google says, or this is what I obtained from such and such a source, and we bring it here and we share it. So we have that freedom. Well, hopefully we no longer have more Kenya. There's the right to agree and the right to disagree, even with the leaders, even with your parents, even with your children. You have a right to agree. We say we agree on this point, but on this point we disagree. And that is how people should basically behave. They say, we don't see eye to eye on this point. That people should be able to say that, even with Ruto. The right to express opinions in peaceful protests. That is a right. And it is enshrined in the Constitution, and nobody should come and take it away. I don't care where they come from. They cannot take that right for me to carry a placard and stand in the cold there and raise it. I remember January 2008, and we were on Parliament Hill in Canada, and we were carrying our placards and saying that we do not want ABCD, and an MP came and we talked to him because of visibility. That's why we went there, and we wanted to say that no, they cannot run. They and their children, they can't run to Canada if they cannot cool the fires in Kenya. So that was our protest, and believe me, that was effective. Just a bunch of Kenyans freezing themselves at Canada's Parliament Hill. But anyway, that is freedom of expression. And the right to seek and receive and share information and ideas. I think that I'm just repeating that. I already said that. So they are our freedom, whether we know that we have them or not. We have them. Now let us come to the people, the limit, where our limit of this goes is when I call on somebody to be harmed just because they couldn't agree with me, or because I do not like their tribe, or I do not like how they behave, or I don't like their ideas, or I don't like the music that they produced, or the music that they produce, I felt like it was criticizing me. And then I come up and I call for them to be harmed in the middle of the night by some thugs or something like that. Or I actually call on it, even if I didn't act on it. If I call on it, that I actually should be jailed, because by my calling out on it, although I might not act on it, a supporter of mine might take it and act on it. So that's just the fact that I should be jailed for calling for somebody to be harmed is to put out a fire that I am trying to start, or bad behavior. Yeah, so that is where the limit goes to. But when Muriuki said that some calls should be curtailed and others should not be curtailed. If you want somebody to be told to be put in a coffin for wanting to look younger, but you cannot put Ruto in a coffin because of what reason? If you decide you are not going to put people in coffins, that it is offensive, what is good for the goose is good for the gander. What will be good for Ruto will be good for, what is her name? Did you say Angelina Jolie or whoever it was? Yeah. So you can't.
Madonna.
Yeah. You cannot pick and choose. You can't pick and choose who can go into a coffin and for what reason. If you think a coffin is offensive, or to say, I don't even know what is offensive about somebody being put in a coffin. People, the effigies of people have been burned, and people who are serious do not have a problem. You can burn my effigy all you want. But if you call for me to be harmed, although actually burning my effigy can be seen by sycophants.
Olympic swimmer Gary Hall Jr.
Tehuti, mute. Please mute. Tehuti.
List of like.
So
SAS-K, if it's Hangout, please make me admin so I can be able to mute people.
Yeah. So okay, I'm saying that when we decided to draw a line somewhere, then we have to draw that line for everybody. And also remember, Muriuki, while you are talking about a coffin does not mean the same thing. What it means out there in Kitui does not mean the same thing out here in my village in Cornwall, here in Ontario. A coffin here is just a coffin. That's it. It just doesn't have the same meaning. So you have to be careful when you say these things, because they are not global. They are not necessarily global. They can be very, very local. Effigies always are burned or even on TV or whatever. Sometimes it just doesn't grab. Even that leader, it might even not grab them. It doesn't mean anything. In the Arab world, they've burned the effigies and the flag of the United States more times than you can count. So what? The leader didn't die. Carter just died the other day at what? How many hundred and what? Yeah. So they never burned. Maybe they never burned the effigy of the Ayatollah. Is he going to did he make, I don't even know whether Evie is alive or not, but we always knew whether Carter was alive or not. So, hey, it doesn't mean the same thing to everybody, but calling for harm to somebody, definitely, that there is already a law against that, and it does not interfere, that law is not interfering with freedom of expression. It's just stopping somebody from calling for the harm of another person. Thank you very much.
All right. Well said, Ndebe. In fact, that would have been a more apt title, freedom of expression, instead of just freedom of speech. Yeah, we can use either. They're synonymous. We can use either freedom of expression or freedom of speech. But that was well said. Next is Luchebeleli.
Thank you very much, Dorcas, and thank you very much, Ndebe. You actually spoke of most of the points that I was about to say, which now I won't say because you talked about them. Now I'll only major on what our constitution says on that. And I still maintain that, in as much as some of us might want, to have absolute freedom of speech or freedom of expression, as we were corrected by Ndebe. Yeah, it's important that we value it as a right. But just as I've said, and I'm still emphasizing on it, there's actually a reason why it's not absolute, and that reason is clearly outlined in our constitution. And the only exceptions where that right of expression doesn't go into or does not extend beyond. Number one, when you're dealing with propaganda of war. Now we can say that let's make freedom of expression absolute. So yes, just as someone said, just as El Maestro said, we have some sycophants who will actually use that. People have fans, whether it's political leaders, religious leaders, or whatever popular leader out there, they have fans. And when they have these fans or these psycho fans or these, people who love them, it's very easy for war to start or war to descend because, yes, they are great orators. Even Hitler himself was a great orator. He used to speak with emotions and rile people up, make people do this. Let's kill the Jews, the final solution and all that. It can happen in absolute freedom of expression. The second limitation, it's again incitement to violence. It has happened before, and we won't let it happen again. In 206, 207 PV, we had incitement to tribal violence because freedom of expression went unchecked. The third one, we have hate speech. Now, hate speech, it's a very funny term, but I'll talk about it again later on. The fourth one is advocacy of hatred in the lines of ethnic incitement or ethnic, racial, gender, or religious discrimination. Now, that is what this advocacy for hatred touches on. We only have those four, I think there are four, those four limitations in which doesn't make the freedom of expression absolute. So why is that? When you have hate speech, we all know what hate speech does. We learned from 2007 post-election violence. We know what it does, so I won't even talk about it. Yeah. Okay. When it comes now to the issue of defamation, which I said that I'll talk about it. The High Court again ruled in 2016. It's initially defamation was actually a criminal offense, but as per 2016 by the High Court ruling, civil liability for defamatory statements remains as a limitation on free speech. So the public figures can often sue media houses or individuals for defamation, but you will rather sue someone versus abducting. Does it make sense? I don't. If it does, it's well and good. Now back to Murieti's issue, and I'm still trying to avoid the Ruto issue. There's a difference between literally taking you, Muriuki, as a person forcefully and throwing you in a coffin, and then probably taking a picture of you, a real Muriuki, in a real coffin, taking a picture. That's different versus me going to an AI, giving it a prompt, it generates your image in a coffin, and then you're out there catching feelings. It's okay. I can't control your feelings. I can't control whether you get angry or sad or anything, but you're a reasonable human being. You don't, yes, you have feelings, but can you make actions, without relying on your feelings? Can you not abduct people? Can you not kill people for that? Art is evolving. Art takes very many forms. Initially, before the AI, people used to draw with their hands. They usually take paints and then draw your silhouette out there. Right now, art is evolving with technology. We have AI, you just give it prompts. It generates photorealistic images of whatever it is. And one of the one of the recent popular regimes which used to glorify a president image were actually the communist regimes. And in these communist regimes, they usually viewed their leader as a supreme leader, similar to a god. Look at North Korea. Right now we have Kim Jong-un. He had a grandfather. His grandfather was actually treated as a god. So every house was supposed to have an image, and that practice found its way into Kenya. We had pictures of Moi. So at any moment when you found that your house can be dirty, but that picture of Kim Jong-un's grandfather shouldn't ever catch dust, because if it does, if we come into a house and you find it has a cracked, if it's cracked or if it's dusty, it will land you into problems, because that's the president image, that's the supreme leader's image. But we are not communist North Korea. We are Kenya. We are a democracy. So if I ban your picture, if I'm using your image in your likeness, you're not a god. So why do you think you can harm someone for that? You know, and yes, I will actually support what Neve said. If you're saying that it's wrong, to put someone in a coffin, but you're advocating for, you have no problem with Madonna her image being put in a coffin. Do you see the awkwardness in your logic? Do you see that? Probably you will soon enough. Okay. Okay. Another importance of freedom of speech. Another limitation. The issue of national security. When that speech threatens national security, it has to be limited to some extent. Yeah. And also, lastly, I will talk about issue of public morality, which is weird because morality is relative. I usually say that, but when it comes to some obscene images, exposing them to little kids growing up and all that, I think yes, it's expression, but it has to be limited. You for instance, it's not really right. It's not really right to show a 5-year-old or a 10-year-old, pornographic content, because it's expression. That's why we have films having some age limitations, whether it's mature content, for kids, for everyone, and all that. So these are the ones. So these are all I can talk about. It has to have limits. It can't be absolute if you're looking at things realistically. Yeah. So now, when it comes to censorship, yes, one might look at censorship as the exact opposite of freedom of speech, but I wouldn't really say it's the exact opposite. It's actually just a regulation, because hypothetically, if we were to have an absolute freedom of expression, um, censorship wouldn't even exist in that by that virtue, yes. But realistically speaking, we have societies which, yes, they don't really follow you. You can express yourself as much as you want, but censorship will still be there, whether it's minimal or whether it's medium or whether it's maximum. But censorship is always there. That's the same reason you can't really walk naked in a kindergarten, because you are expressing yourself. You will be arrested for indecent exposure. We have sort of these regulations have to exist in a realistic society. We can't have absolute. The fun thing about human rights, some of the human rights are good. It's well and good we have them, but your right, let not your right impede someone else's somewhere, because that will be wrong. That wouldn't be right. So therefore, some rights can't really be absolute, in as much as some of us vouch for freedom of expression. It has to be there. It's a must. It has to be there, but it shouldn't be absolute. It has to be regulated one way or another. Saying this, I'm not also for censorship as well, but if I can give a small scenario, the issue of Trump in 2016, when he actually came into power. When Trump came into power and free speech went unchecked, you know, and coincidentally, we had the 2019 issue, we had COVID, a sensitive issue coming around, in as much as it has been politicized, and even we have COVID deniers, just the same way we had HIV deniers and all that. When you're dealing with some sensitive issues that affect society as a whole, and instead of dealing with that issue, you're also dealing with misinformation. Because yes, people can express themselves. Now, we can't really tell who the experts are, who the pseudo, who the conspiracy theorists are. Everyone seems to be an expert. So someone is telling you that onions and garlic will cure COVID. Another one is telling you, COVID is not there, it's just propaganda. Another one is telling you COVID is there, you should wash your hands. Another one is telling you COVID is there, you should drink battery acid, you'll get well. So we have free speech there. So who should we censor? Who should we listen to? Because you can't really tell everyone that you should be listening to Dr. Fauci and you should ignore this village guy. And then another one person says, no, Dr. Fauci is actually being funded by some people who don't want anything good out of you. So you should be listening to your village elder and all that. So we will be having chaos. We will actually be playing at a very dangerous, environment, causing disaster in society. So you see how all this unfolded into what we saw. And I think we were lucky because even right now, yes, we have COVID deniers. Even we have some medics who are COVID deniers. Well and good. And I usually say we are lucky because that time
A minute left, Eugene. 1 minute.
Sure. Last time we got lucky because COVID wasn't really that scary. It had a 0.1%, but who knows? Probably in 5 years, in 2 years, you might have something as deadly or even worse than Ebola, over 50% mortality. Now, if we have free speech without censorship, how will we go about it? So it's very important why we should regulate this free speech and all that. Yeah, thank you.
Wow. What a comprehensive response. In fact, you have taken the words right out of my mouth because I was going to quote the Constitution on the limits of free speech. It's important to understand where we stand legally because these issues are legal in nature. If you break the laws of your country, you will get arrested. So that's why it's important for us to base our opinions on legal facts. So I'm very glad that Lucheveleli spoke about those 4 conditions under which the Constitution, specifically Article 33, limits our freedom of speech. Just for emphasis, I know he has mentioned and explained them. I won't belabor the point. I'll just repeat those 4 conditions. 1, incitement to violence. 2, propaganda for war. 3, hate speech. And 4, advocacy of hatred towards a certain group, especially ethnic group. Now, I think the one that is a bit of an ambiguous one is hate speech, because the others, I think they make sense. If I'm going to say, those Kalenjins, if you see any Kalenjin coming here, you need to kill them. That is incitement to violence. You're going to cause foreseeable harm to these individuals because of their ethnic identity or any other identity that they have. So that is definitely a reason why freedom of speech should be curtailed, why censorship should be necessary in that regard. If you're going to cause harm, physical harm to an individual, or you are inciting other people to harm others, then that should be curtailed. That definitely makes sense. Now, this one of hate speech, we need to understand how the Constitution interprets it. So there was a National Cohesion and Integration Commission Act, NCIC Act, that was passed in Parliament. It's an act of Parliament, and it defined what hate speech is. What hate speech is. I wrote it down. Hate speech is defined as threatening, insulting, or abusive behavior because of ethnic hatred. And here, ethnic is perceived as an umbrella term for other relevant identities like race, like nationality. They could even be one's disability status, or their sex or their pregnancy status. So those components are regarded as hate speech. So it has to be threatening, insulting, or abusive behavior or words that are directed towards one's ethnicity, because of one's ethnicity or those protected classes. So if I come to you and I tell you, El Maestro, I hate you, for personal reasons, maybe I don't like El Maestro's smile. Maybe I don't like his teeth. Or maybe there's something he did to me in the group, and that is warranting my dislike of El Maestro, and so I insult El Maestro. That is not hate speech. You know why? Because it's not because of his ethnicity or the other protected classes like disability, race, or nationality. That's the difference. Hate speech has to refer to the context of ethnicity or of those protected classes. We must keep that in mind when we continue with this discussion, especially when we're talking about Beruto and Gen Z abductions. Another limitation, which Eugene rightfully pointed out, is defamation. And we do have we do have those limits. And in fact, there was a case involving Bingo Enterprises from Lake Victoria, which involved them suing the Star newspaper for slanderous information about them. So you can sue someone if they slander or they engage in libel or malicious intent towards you. You can take them to court and it will be a civil matter, which often is punished through a fine. So that particular enterprise won 10 million shillings from the Star newspaper. And it sparked a lot of outrage from the media fraternity because they said, again, that ruling is infringing on the Constitution. Article 34 and 35 says that the media should be independent. So if we are going to fine them such hefty sums, like 10 million shillings, for something that they said because of defamation, then you are infringing on media independence. But as per now, somebody can sue you when you engage in slander. When you slander somebody's name, when you defame them based on a lie, okay? And that one involves a court civil procedure. You must take that person to court and prove that the information they published is false and it has malicious intent. You must prove that. Okay, that's another limit for us. Then others, I think Eugene was very comprehensive. Medical quacks, medical quackery, medical disinformation. The example he gave of COVID, that one is crucial. I know of a friend who, actually, it's not even a friend. It was a former date. His love for conspiracy theories is what drifted us apart, is what split us apart. So he belonged to a church, an Adventist church, where the pastor, who had a large YouTube following, was telling people in his sermons that they should not believe the government. There's no such thing as COVID, that COVID is a hoax perpetuated by the West. Because of that kind of content on YouTube, he was demonetized. The channel was demonetized. It was censored, in other words. Their freedom of speech was curtailed. And I endorse that because I think such disinformation and misinformation causes harm to people. You will keep someone from seeking medical intervention because they believe your lies. Okay, so something that causes harm. The medical quackery, medical disinformation, I think that one is covered in our constitution and it's generally known globally. There's also the idea of military secrets. I think Eugene pointed that out. Child pornography and indecent exposure for sites that can be accessed by children, and death threats. So if somebody is threatening to kill you, and they're using certain platforms to do so, or even if they're not using certain platforms, but they're telling you that they're going to kill you, then we have to curtail that freedom of speech, because it will definitely cause harm. So the bottom line here, I believe, is harm. If your freedom of speech will cause harm to an individual, then it needs to be curtailed. Censorship there is warranted. Now, and I would also like to say that another bottom line is we should curtail when it comes to discourse, when it comes to debates that people have, perhaps the language that people use, if it's a debate, if it's something formal, the language that people use, the discourse, it should be civil. We should curtail the style, but we should not curtail the content, the opinion that somebody holds. So if somebody, like in our group, there are some people who have Nazi stickers, and they support the Nazi side of that historical issue, we should not curtail them for holding that opinion, but we should curtail how they engage in it. If they are continually trolling, insulting people, demeaning people, I think they need to be stopped. But holding an opinion, no opinion, should be forbidden. You should allow people to think for themselves, not to say, no, here you are not allowed to be an vegan, or you're not allowed to be this or that simply because it's unpopular. Everybody has a right to hold their opinion. Let's curtail the style of debate, but not the content of the debate or the ideas. No idea should be sacrosanct, or no idea should be demonized. That is, unless it is causing direct physical harm to people. So, given those understandings of censorship and freedom of speech, now let's get to this heart of the matter. The reason why we are having this debate right now, because of the political situation in our country. What do we think about the Gen Z abductions that have taken place, and how people are responding to them? Do we think this is an infringement of those Gen Z freedom of speech or freedom of expression rights? Do we think it's infringing on their rights? Or do we think it's okay? And why do you hold that opinion on the Gen Z abductions and Ruto's reaction to it? I know we've been dying to get to that one, and maybe we can address all those things that have been coming out before. Given our understanding, now that we have a base understanding of what is freedom of speech, what is covered in the Constitution, and what can be censored, what are the limits. Great. So I see Morioki's hand is up. Go ahead, Morioki.
Thanks, Douglas. Douglas, can I ask a quick question? Just a quick question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, is there a thing like respecting authority? Does that exist? The terms are respecting authority.
No.
And if it does,
no.
Yeah?
It does not. It is not covered in the Constitution. There is no such thing. Just the four things I told you: incitement to violence, propaganda to war, and that hate speech. I told you it is if it is with regard to ethnicity, somebody's ethnicity or somebody's nationality or race. So it's not being an authority figure. No, it's not in the Constitution.
Okay, no, because I remember in school there were teachers and there were prefects, and there was someone you had to be around them, because not to bow to them, but in that position, there's a way. They are there for a reason. Teachers and prefects are there for a reason. So how you behave to them will teach you a lot about the real world. That's my view. That's why I asked about authority, because a prefect and a teacher are there for a reason. Okay, then my second point is like about Madonna. I'm not saying it's right to do that, to put it in a coffin. But if you do that, there'll be a debate about it, because you're driving a point home that this person is old. Just accept your age. Now, looking like Jim Carter died the other day. Jim Carter, he was, I think, 100 years old. Now, if him is put in a coffin, I'm not saying it's not right, but it will make sense. But now I'm saying, Ruto at this stage of his career, then you put him in a coffin, that goes off. So their limit, and I believe in warning. Give a warning. Don't abduct. Say, please don't repeat that again. There should be a warning. Your warning, your caution, don't do it again instead of abduction. Yeah, thanks.
Is an abduction as bad as putting somebody in a coffin? Is it?
Yeah,
Is it as bad?
Devin, don't warn them. Don't abduct. Give a warning. Give a warning. Fight in public. Give
Why
a warning.
warn them? Why?
Morioki.
Why warn them? On what grounds?
Coffin.
On what grounds?
Eugene,
On what grounds, Morioki?
Eugene answer death. Eugene, no one likes death. No one likes death. Be honest. Death.
But it's not illegal, Morioki. That's it's based on you not liking a coffin. It's not covered in the Constitution anyway. That's just your perspective.
I would like to tell Morioki
also,
something
Morioki,
about coffins.
Just a minute, Devin. Just a minute, Devin. Also, Morioki, you mentioned prefects and other authority figures.
Yeah.
You said
teachers. Yeah.
And teachers, yes. You said teachers and prefects. Teachers, prefects, and headmasters are there for a reason. Yeah, they are there for a reason. But now, do you think that the prefects or the headmasters are always right?
No.
Aren't there moments where they need to be criticized?
True. Yes. They are human. They make mistakes. I agree. True. That's true.
Mm-hmm. That's the same logic with President Ruto. He made mistakes and people were criticizing him.
But in a coffin, in a dead coffin, in a coffin, that's just one the kids.
You're stuck. Morioki cannot get beyond the coffins. All the people who are abducted, especially the last 6, there have been around 82 people that have been abducted ever since the finance bill protests began. But over the last, let's say, month, there have been 6 men that were abducted. Not all 6 put Ruto in a coffin.
True, Docas, true. I'm saying there are limits. No, Doc, I'm saying there are limits. That was extreme. The coffin was extreme. That's my point.
So even this aspect of you saying that they should be warned when they are criticizing the president.
Yeah, like the coffin.
What is your basis?
The coffin, only the coffin, Lucas, coffin only, nothing else. Just the coffin. I'm on the coffin.
Morioki is stuck with the coffin. He can't get past it. Thank you, Morioki. Let's hear from Luchabeleli, and then we'll hear from Deve.
Thank you very much, Dorcas. With regards to the current Gen Z, the revolution and all, I think, to me, this is just a symptom or of something which is something greater unfolding. So you don't deal with problems by sorting out the symptoms and ignore the insidious underlying issue at hand that will actually do away with you, not just the symptoms. Now, when we look at the current Gen Z, the fracas that has been going on, it's a lot more. If we were dealing with a logical government or a leader, I'm not trying to bring in politics. I'm highly trying to avoid politics in here. If we were actually dealing with people who are critical thinkers, people who value reason, if you see people are if you see people are if you see people don't agree with you, if you see people rioting up and down, people demonstrating, you should start to ask yourself the serious questions. Why are they doing that? You know, and even if it's what Muriuki is saying at your coffins, putting you in coffins, yet it's an AI depiction. It's a form of expression. Now, if I draw Muriuki in a coffin, have I put Muriuki in a coffin? and 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 apart from that, if Muriuki or even that guy up there was actually reasonable, he would ask himself, okay, why are you guys drawing me or depicting my image in a coffin? Number one, you start to ask yourself, why is that? Now, when you start to understand why, for instance, the cost of living is going up, you are overly taxing people, these are the real issues, SHA is not working, the systems are breaking down and all that, all these are things only you have the power to sort them out. People out there don't have the power to sort that out. People out there will only demonstrate to tell you, look, we are having problems and you're ignoring us. So how will we get your attention? I will depict you in a coffin. I will draw silhouettes about you. I will make songs about you. So it's up for you. Number one, you can either make the decision of abducting us and not handle the issue at hand, or number two, you can ask yourself the serious issues and start to work on them. It's all upon you. So whether you're dealing with your feelings, whether you get angry, it has nothing to do with me. I'm just telling you, you know what? I'm not satisfied with what you're doing. So the issue about, it's, a warning, that's nonsense. That's utter nonsense, pure nonsense, Muriuki. You should actually stop that sort of thinking. And number two, death comes at anyone. Death doesn't pick anyone based on how old they are, because if it did that, we won't be having kids dying, we won't be having teenagers dying, we won't be having middle-aged people dying, we will only have old people dying. But death doesn't have favorites. Death doesn't work the way you want, Muriuki. And the fact that someone is depicted using an AI depiction, it doesn't really mean that he's dead. It's like, probably you don't know how to take jokes. Probably Ruto doesn't know how to take jokes. Probably they don't understand how expression works in all its forms. And just as I've said, if you and that guy were critical thinkers, you should ask yourself, why are people doing that? Okay, one person may be doing that because it's humor, but why are most of the youth in the country doing that? Right now, when you go into X, you will see very, very many depictions of him, not just that one who did that. And I think it's like a wave, and it will intensify as well. Because that's the way the Gen Z have figured we will have the attention of the government. Because initially, before those depictions, they used to get ignored. When someone says they're jobless, the cost of living is going up, they ignored. So how else will they get his attention? Depicting him in other absurd images, and it works. It actually works because he's responding to them. And the fun thing about art, and I'll tell you this as an artist, I can create an art form. I'm not really targeting you to love my art. What I'm targeting is you to react to my art. My art will have done its job. Art is about reaction. It's about eliciting reaction, whether it's happy reactions, whether it's bad reaction, whether you'll cry about it, whether you'll kill people about it. My art has done its form. And that's actually 100%. The artist has accomplished the job, whether it's the silhouettes, whether it's the depiction. And the main target, the target audience has reacted to it. Job is done 100%. That's the essence of art. And art has very many roles in society, including Muriuki, I bet you're hearing me, including, calling up the ills, the societal ills, issues with management, lazy, corrupt leaders. They can actually be depicted whether it's through music, whether it's through, art, film, and all that. The fact that the target audience is reacting to it, art is doing its job perfectly. And that's what I'd say. So back to the current issue we're actually dealing with. And, funny thing, the people who have been released from the abduction, the fact that charges haven't been filed, it's because there's no crime there. If crimes are there, we know how the state is swift in securing prosecutors and all that. They will actually be being prosecuted, but there's no violation they've done. No law anywhere says that you cannot insult a president. That's an opinion, that's an expression. There is no law in this Kenya. So what Muriki you're trying to say at it's extreme. It's like there's nothing extreme about depicting your opinion or your expression in whatever way, as long as someone is not getting harmed. There's nothing really wrong about that. And I think if you feel that there's something wrong, you will better quote us a constitution or a cap. Then I will agree. But based on what you're saying, you're dealing with feelings again, and feelings have nothing to do with how the real world works or how art is expressed and all that. It has nothing to do with it. So that's what I'd say about it. Yeah, thanks.
Well said, Luceveleli. You have talked about the importance of artistic expression in this Root or Gen Z abduction debate. Next is Ndeve, then El Maestro.
Wow, yes. Muriuki, think about the one of the forms of expression, and it is artistic expression. People might as well be making plays, and the people always did that, particularly in oppression, in the times of oppression. People sang, and people made plays, poems, and things like those to send a message to the people, the person that they were targeting. I could see you stuck on coffins because we generally because we are superstitious and people have got a fear of where they will end up when they die, as if they can avoid it, as if we could avoid it. So coffin for you is a very extreme. Or you should come over here during Halloween, and in every home outside there is a coffin. Because it takes the sting, like it is a fun. And I find that because people have dealt with that issue, okay? So this is how they've dealt with it. It's a fact. Hey, we might as well have fun. If I were Ruto, I would start having some fun with this thing, and that would take the sting right out. But he's too sensitive to take, because that's how I would join the fun. I would just join the fun, and I would even put my own AIA with myself in a coffin. Yeah, you think you can do coffins? I can do better coffin. And that way, it is just because people take themselves too seriously. And there's a problem with that. When we take ourselves too seriously, we are offended very easily, and we are offended with it by something that actually should not have offended. You take it. I mean, you hurl me that, and I hurl it back to you, and guess what? We are even. So Muriuki, it is just your cultural upbringing that a coffin is an extreme thing. There's nothing about a coffin. There is absolutely zero about coffin. In fact, if you want to have a peaceful walk, the most peaceful walk you'll ever have is in Makaburini, if you wish. And you don't have to know somebody in those Makaburini, but you can make a very peaceful walk. It's only after you've dealt with it. It's not a new thing to me. It's something that I had my first walk in Makaburini when I was a student in Kenya Polytechnic. Out somewhere in Pangani, there's somewhere in not Pangani, there's somewhere in Nairobi where there are very, very peaceful Makaburini, and I would go and I would look at all these, and there were like names of white people. Not that I knew anybody. It was just a walk for me. I was just having a very peaceful walk. Yeah. So and those are some of the things that get your mind to open up, so that you're not stuck. You're not stuck in those things. There is nothing you can do about death, Muriuki, and the coffins. It's probably going to be, if you are not going to be cremated or given to Luceveleli to take a look, you're going to end up in one of those. So get used to that. There's nothing in it. As far as I'm concerned, there's absolutely nothing about a coffin. So somebody put. What about somebody burying an effigy? You did not say anything about somebody making a likeness of you and setting it alight. Real effigy, or even AI. Tell us about that one. Thank you.
All right. Well said, Ndeve. I think there's a superstitious undertone in this issue of making exceptions for coffins or death. We Africans or religious people, they tend to adore death too much. It's no biggie. Breaking news: we will all come out of this life dead. It's inescapable. So thank you so much, Debe, for your response. Next is El Maestro.
I got lost a bit. So the question was what? Or you are responding to Muruki's question about?
No. The question is, what is your opinion on the Gen Z abductions in the context of freedom of speech, or of the topic today? Do you think that their freedom of speech was curtailed or whatever? Yeah, your opinion on this issue.
Okay, first of all, let me respond to Muruki's question about I don't know, Madonna and Ruto. First thing is, Muruki, do you know Ruto is also over 60 years old? I think Ruto is also 60 years old, like Madonna, the same age. Let me just Google William Ruto age. Now, William Ruto is okay. Yeah, he's 58 years, but okay, he's just 2 years older than 2 years younger than Madonna. So why are you making exceptions of Madonna, who is just 2 years older than Ruto? The first thing is, for me, actually, the first thing of what did I want to say? The first thing is, when someone is a celebrity, when you are a celebrity, you know that a lot of people know you. When you're a celebrity, you should a celebrity, whether you're a politician, a musician, or a journalist, as long as you're a celebrity, expect anything, anytime, because you a lot of people know you. So this you cannot expect that these people will be all of them will be positive about whatever you do or whatever you say. Yeah? Like Muruki, for you, Muruki, there are a lot of people if I go in Ukambani and I ask them, do you know Muruki Gidongo? They say, who is that? But almost everyone in this country knows William Ruto. So if you're a celebrity, whether a politician, musician, journalist, as long as you're a celebrity, expect anything. So Madonna, I don't know if Madonna, she's getting old, and if it is right for Madonna, if for you it is right.
She's 66. Madonna, she's 66 years old. 66.
66. Okay, even if she's 66 years old, that is neither here nor there. The fact is, if you are okay with Madonna of a coffin, or a picture of a coffin with Madonna in it, you should also be okay with a picture of Ruto in a coffin. Secondly, about coffee now, I think I told you this even before, even when you are starting. For me, if I see my picture in a coffin, I'll actually laugh. And I'll say, the person who made that AI, I'll ask him, actually, how do you make this thing? Because it's funny. Because coffee in Muruki, I think there's some things that there's a religious mentality still in your mind. Because a coffin does not, it's like religious people who are scared by a coffin. Muruki, let me ask you a question. Will you be? Can you work in a place where they sell coffins? Can you work there?
Yeah, in fact, El Maestro, I always go when people die. I know I go to the mortuary first before people come to view the body on my own.
No, I've not told you in a mortuary. I've told you where the places where they sell coffins. Can you work somewhere where they sell coffins?
No.
Why?
No, I wouldn't.
Because you are scared of a coffin. When you see you look at like at a coffin, you are like That's a religious mentality. Me, I
You want to die.
cannot.
Ernesto, you want to die. Ernesto, you want to die now. Life is still going on. Life is still
Coffin
going
is
on,
just
man.
a coffin is just a piece of wood, a piece of art that is it's a piece of wood that is artist. It has been shaped. It's neither here nor there. Before before these Europeans came, were there coffins in our land? There are no coffins. People are just being buried the way they are. So why do you make a big deal about just a coffin? A coffin is just an instrument where you just it big enough for some of a human being to fit in. There's nothing else that I draw from looking at an image of a coffin. Let's leave it there. Okay, about this Gen Z abductions, I think William, this our president Ruto is. I don't know what to say about him because how can you be abducting youth just because someone made a picture of a coffin of you, or someone make a depiction of a cartoon of you? But there's someone who said there's a cartoonist on Nation from Nation or Standard Group. He is called Omari, who has been he has been depicting cartoons of politicians in a funny way. Or there's also this show of XYZ that used to air in Citizen TV of depicting politicians in I don't know, is it cartoons or is it animations? Yes, and people are actually used to laugh. They laugh and nothing has ever been done to those people. Why is he now abducting others who are depicting his pictures of a cartoon in a funny way? That is that shows for me is actually, if he was a leader during the days of Moi, it would have been worse than Moi. But now Kenya, we are a democracy. Even if he wants to be a dictator, there are some things that even if he wants to, he cannot. Abducting youths just because of coffins and these things, it just shows he's a weak leader in my view. He's a weak leader, and maybe his leadership is authoritarian. He's an authoritarian leader, not a what do you call, not a servant leader, but an authoritarian leader. Even there've been some rumors that Kindiki is just there. He's just there to be there. Like there's literally nothing much that he's doing, but that is just rumors. For me, abduction should be a thing of the past. Be a thing of the past. Abducting youths, just if they are wrong, of course, whatever other youths have said, if they are wrong, just charge them.
1 minute, El Maestro.
Okay, yes, but those youths that have been abducted, they are just released, and there are no charges. So and I repeat again, if you are a leader, if you are a celebrity, whether a politician, you should be ready for anything. People will create all sorts of memes about you, and you should be able to deal with you should be able to just be okay with that, because you are a celebrity. And that does not show that, I don't know, the youths are immoral like these leaders are saying. No, the youths are just they're enjoying their freedom of speech and their freedom of expression. Not that they are immoral. They're just enjoying their freedom of expression. Full stop. Yeah.
All right. Agreed. I am 100% behind your assertion. So I see some people have raised their hands again. Allow me to make my contribution on the issue, then we'll go to Ndebe and to Morioki again. Now, I think the points have been made by Luceveleli and El Maestro, but I will just elaborate on them using particular examples, or I'll give them more flesh. The first reason why these abductions should not take place, because obviously I am in opposition to abducting youth for criticizing President Ruto. Number one is that it is a constitutionally protected right to express yourself creatively. El Maestro has given very good examples. The XYZ show that used to mimic President Kibaki during his time, and a bit of Uhuru Kenyatta. Before that, I'm a millennial, and I remember we used to have the ridiculous show which used to appear in one of the stations, and I think it merged with the Churchill show, or it's somehow related to Churchill show. But we used to have John Kiarie, we had Tony Njuguna, and Walter Mongare that were actors. Walter Mongare used to mimic President Moi. Tony Njuguna used to mimic Mwai Kibaki. And they did the most stupid things when showing President Moi. And we knew that President Moi had dictatorial tendencies, but he never stopped them. They were free to express themselves. So why is Ruto making himself an exception now? We had cartoonists, El Maestro has mentioned some, but even from back in the day, there was on the Nation newspaper, we had Gadot, who has been making cartoons of politicians from way back, from the post-independence era. And nothing has happened to them. It comes with a job description. To be the president or to be a politician, it comes with a job description. You can't be that sensitive. You can't take offense to criticism via cartoons. If you can take the heat, stay out of the kitchen. Be like Uhuru Kenyatta, dear William Ruto. Uhuru Kenyatta faced a lot of bile from Kenyans on Twitter, and he decided to leave the platform. He's like, hey, misiwezani na watu wako huku. So I think the more mature thing to do for William Ruto would be to just exit X and not to bother with those things, or to actually join in the fun. I remember I watched a video towards the end of last year where I think it was the New Year celebrations at State House, he was dancing to Kasongo. Yeah, and for those of you who have been living in under a rock, Kasongo is a recent tune, or rather, it's an old tune. It's a Zilizopendo tune by Congolese Super Mazembe band that has recently become famous again because it's been tied to memes associated with President Ruto. He is actually called Kasongo from the song. So I saw him dancing to that song. Yet, the person who made the Kasongo silhouettes, the Kasongo memes, Kibet Bull, was abducted. Why the double standard? This is creative expression. Everybody should be allowed to criticize someone in authority. That's number one, creative expression. It is a constitutionally protected right. Number two, why I oppose these abductions is that they are relying on extrajudicial methods of enforcement. This is turning our country into a gangster state. You don't respond to a perceived, and I must put it in quotes because it's just perceived, it's not a wrong. You are responding to a perceived wrong through extrajudicial methods. You are imposing an extreme outcome to a very trivial thing. It's like burning your house because you saw cobwebs. and realize they're spiders. No, we can't descend to that level as Kenyans. We are a country that believes in the rule of law and due process. So if Ruto thinks that there's a problem with those memes, he should sue those so-called cartoonists or any other person that is criticizing him on social media. He should take them to court and follow due process. And I can tell you for free, don't even bother, Mr. President, taking them to court, because you will lose that case. Because they have not broken any law. They have not broken any law. That is not hate speech in any way, shape, or form. It is mere artistic expression and criticism of someone in authority. So no, we cannot descend to extrajudicial means of doing this. IG, Inspector General Kanja, and Directorate of Criminal Investigations, the Director of Criminal Investigation, DCI, are claiming they don't know what is going on. So this is showing that an authoritative figure is using their power in order to stifle dissent. That they don't want to be criticized, so they are using a backdoor method to enforce it. No, it is well within our right to criticize him. Now that leads me to the third reason why I oppose this idea, which is that there's a basis for criticizing the president. I think Lucheveleli alluded to this in his contribution. We have problems with the Ruto regime. We saw it during the anti-finance bill protests. We are seeing it with mass youth unemployment, excessive corruption, the problems with SHA and SHIF, the affordable housing project, and all these other things. People are discontent. Recently, it was shown that our economy is in a slump. It's really doing badly. We are drowning in debt. There are so many challenges with the Ruto regime, with his leadership. So people are simply voicing their concerns. If you try and stifle those voices, it shows that you are actually agreeing that you are doing these mistakes, but you don't want them to talk about it. And that is actually a strategy that is borrowed from the authoritarian's toolbox. Remember, we had this discussion last year when we were talking about dictatorships, and we highlighted some qualities of a dictator. One of them was that when there are protests of bad governance, they are harshly punished. You silence dissent when you are an oppressive leader. You also obliterate media freedom and only use media as an indoctrination tool. In this day and age, mainstream media is quickly being replaced by social media. So those people that were abducted were on social media, and they have big platforms that have gone viral, especially Kibet Bull and some of the others. So you do that when you are an authoritarian leader. You try and obliterate media freedom, social media freedom in this respect. Another tool in their toolbox is they murder, imprison, intimidate, and torture people who hold a contrary opinion to them. This is the road that our president is taking us down into. By abducting and torturing people. It's actually unfortunate that some of those men that were released did not say anything. They've been sworn to secrecy. I think they were required to stay silent about what happened during the time when they were abducted. But one of them said that they had been beaten up. They had been beaten up. So they had been tortured. They had been abused. That is a toolbox from the authoritarian regime. Then there's also one that is relevant here is citizen complaints are dismissed as foreign sponsored or are dismissed as insightful, that they're inciting the masses, yet those are just concerns and they are very warranted. So we cannot go down that path. Last thing I have to say on this, is, I already said it, that he's a public figure and it comes with a job description. You need to be ready to face any criticism. The youth that were abducted did not deserve it. I don't even want to give an ear to some of these people who are saying, oh, youth need to learn how to behave. No, parents should be obeyed only when those parents are doing the right thing. A leader should be respected only when the leader is doing the right thing. If not, criticize with every fiber of your being, because that's all they have. So that's my position on the issue. I know I've taken longer than usual. Now, there are two more hands. You can comment and then we proceed to the last aspect. This one now deals with something slightly different, but it's still within the freedom of speech debate. Morioki, I see your hand is up, and then Devin.
Thank you, Dorcas. So, first of all, I don't believe in abductions. I'm against abducting people. I want to get that right. I'm against abduction. What I'm saying is, like, these kids have been called and told. Again, I insist, do what you want. But the death thing, I'm against it. And I want to ask Eugene, as an artist, what if you draw a picture of Ruto when if he's poor? I'm a Ruto being abducted. Maybe you draw a picture of Ruto being abducted, Ruto in jail, Ruto looking poor, or something like that. Is that more powerful than being put in a coffin? Yeah, that's to
Muriuki,
yeah.
Let me just respond now to save on time. Number one, you don't tell an artist how to express themselves. Number one. Number two, art comes from that. It's what the artist decides. When you tell what an artist should do, it stops being art anymore. It just being it just becomes what you're telling them. Art, in its primest, in its most enjoyable forms, must come from the artist, what the artist wants. That's why it's the artist who paints, not you who want it to paint it this way. It stops being an art form. So you can't tell a cartoonist or anyone who tries to criticize the government how they should do that. It's up to the artist to decide how. So if they want to depict such a person in coffins, in jail, wherever, it's up to them to decide, not you. It's not your job. Your job, it's only to react to what he has produced, but not to be part of the generating or the creation process. That's not your job. You're not the artist. Let the artist do that. So that's all I can tell you.
Okay, Eugene, is there a difference between birth and death? Is there a difference between somebody being born and somebody dead?
Of course, there's creation of there's a creation of life, and there's end of life. So what's your point? What's the essence? How is this related to it?
Yeah, I'm insisting, putting somebody on his death, showing somebody has died, Eugene.
No. It just shows. Let me talk, Moriki, because you've asked the question. So let me answer you. It just shows that you have some religious hangover still within you, and you should heal from that. You should learn to think beyond that. You should actually employ critical thinking skills to fight that. Otherwise, you'll just be slipping back to where you're coming from. That's it. You'll just be slipping. There's nothing supernatural about that. You should actually, even at your age, you should start to enjoy the time you have, instead of fearing death, because it's inevitable. No one comes out of life alive. Each and every one of us dies. So you should stop fixating on it. It's backward. It's not constructive anymore. it's like you're holding yourself back from many things because you fear that. It's natural. All of us might fear it, but but you're not we are not fixating on it. So when you see depiction of coffins, I think you're just being too superstitious about it. And you should learn to grow out of that. You should leave that hangover behind. Leave it far behind.
Okay, it's like Doka mentioned, this SHA and NHI. I went to register for SHA, but I was told to lie. I was told to say so many lies about what I do, how I live. So I said I won't go back there because I was told to lie. So now if you put a cartoon of like a NHIF SHA depicting that, now you have to lie so that you pay less money. Now that's more powerful than a dead person. Trust me, it will drive a message more than a dead person. That's what I'm saying.
Muriuki, I'm still insisting, yes, that's your point, but I'm telling you, there's no in this world that you can tell how an artist should express him or herself. You can never do that. Even that artist will be pissed upon you, and some of them will even cut you off completely because that's annoying, that's inappropriate. You don't tell an artist how to express themselves. Same way you don't tell a musician what lyrics to use just because they seem nice to you, because these are the lyrics. You don't like them. If you don't like the music, don't listen to them. If you don't like the art, don't watch that art. Don't have anything to do with what they're creating. But the worst thing you can do, Muriuki, is to try and dictate to an artist what works they must produce. That's stupidity of the highest order, and you should desist from that. And I'm telling you as a friend, you have no business telling what an artist should create or how they should express themselves. It's annoying, Muriuki. You can't do that to an artist.
Okay, like I think Doctors remember XYZ and Ridiculous. They used to make fun of Moi and Kibaki. Then I think once Ridiculous, they went to State House one. Then once those sevens, this rugby competition, they were stopped but cops came and stopped them. But in the end, Moi saw there's nothing wrong because they just make fun of him. Even XYZ, they make fun and you laugh at their joke. But now when you put somebody that is dead, that's not funny anymore. You see, Ridiculous, XYZ, we used to laugh. We used to time that show because we used to laugh at Kibaki, how Kibaki looks, his wife, Mo is dancing, Mo is doing this. So you just laugh. It's good humor. But now somebody in a coffin is not a good humor. So thanks.
Thank you, Muriuki. But those are your personal sentiments and personal tastes. To you, it is distasteful to talk about a coffin, but to others, it is not distasteful. And we cannot use personal preferences as a rule of law. So that's what you think, but that's not how to run a country. I'm sorry. And as Luceveleli said, you cannot dictate to artists what is in good taste and what is in bad taste. None of that.
Because I'm against abductions, but I'm against abductions. I'm against.
Yes, we had you. We've had you. I think, Muriuki, you are belaboring the point. We've had you. You've repeated what you needed to say to make scare, and we've responded. So let's move on to the next speaker before we talk about the last subtopic. Yes, Ndeve?
Wow, thank you. Yeah, I'll come to Muriuki later and art, and I'm not even an artist, but I love art, all forms of art. I can't even draw to save my life. I can draw with a straight ruler, but I can't draw to save your life. But sometimes kids, when you've got little kids, they will say, nichoree mundo, that kind of thing. Yeah, I used to find it challenging, but anyway. I find some people, some leaders, particularly in Africa, very, very touchy, very sensitive to all sorts of things. And as Dorcas has kept on saying, it comes with the territory. If you don't want to be a public figure, because being a public figure, you hear the word public and figure, utaanikwa hapo, madhambi ulifanya, kuku uliiba, somebody's going to bring it out. If you are going to run for an office, you've got to be ready for that one because you are a public figure. But they run there without taking that into consideration. That, vile ulikuwa unapata zero, in class, your classmate comes and says, oh, yeah, I heard Ruto's classmate saying that we are abducted already. That was the classmate, a lady classmate of Ruto. So those things will come out because now you are a public figure. When you are a farmer there, you know, having all those problems, nobody was interested in you or Kuiba Kuku or anything. But the minute you are, yes, they are interested in you. And I do not know how they don't take that into consideration. To me, he's just being overly sensitive. He thinks, I'm going to use that, there's a song, is ash does not stink. It does, like everybody else's. There's a song, actually, there's a song like that. Muriuki has no problem not heard about it. He thinks that his ash does not stink. And I don't even know where he got this idea from, that he is perfect. Well, we probably did that, elevated him to that level where he has to think like that. Now, and artists are going to make the art that they want to make. If the inspiration, because I think art goes by inspiration. Somebody is inspired and the words come like that. That is what the artist is going to do. I am going to ask Muriuki a question. Muriuki, what if an artist got inspired to do a big sculpture of somebody or whoever, or of nobody, and put it somewhere in a main street in Nairobi, and it is the sculpture of a naked person? Everything naked, somebody naked. What do you think? What would you think? It's a sculpture. It doesn't have a name on it. It is just an art, piece of art. Would you be against that?
Yeah, because we wear clothes now. Now we have clothes. So I'll be against it because we have clothes nowadays. We wear clothes.
I have got news for you. I have news for you. People go all the way to Florence, Italy, to see a naked sculpture of a youthful David because it is well done. And he is just naked. He's just a naked youth. They used in some, I don't know, maybe 100 years ago, they had made a cover for that sculpture. Now it just stays there. It stays there naked. And I used to have an Italian boss, and he said, oh, the only problem with Michelangelo is that he made Italians look really small. But that youth is a beautiful, beautiful depiction of a young person. Well, the Europeans think that you should have hung a little bit more. You should have put a little bit more. Men, you men are very funny. I'm sorry. I can't help but laugh about that. Men, that's all they see. Me, I just saw a muscular young man, a very good sculpture. But some people just saw the size. I don't know. How can you, in a whole human being, that's all you see? Anyway, Muriuki, get used to the fact that Lucheveleli here deals with anatomy every day, all the time. There is nothing too sacred about the human. We know exactly how you look like and dressed. I'm sorry. Get used to that, Muriuki. Thank you.
Wow. You have tempted me to go and look for that sculpture. But I think I have a rough idea.
Oh, you should. You'll be able to find it online. Just go look for David. The one in the academia, in the Museum of Academia in Florence. It's a real one. Take a look at it.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
Muriuki, you should also look at Muriuki should also look at it to understand art. That is art. It is not pornography. It is not insulting anybody. It is a stone. It is stone.
Doctors, why are you tempted? Doctors, why are you tempted?
Because I want to see what the fuss is about. The Europeans were complaining about his smallness. So
not the nakedness, Doctors, because it's naked, Doctors, because it's naked, right? Because it's naked. Because it's naked.
No, I've told you not necessarily, but that area of controversy that the Europeans were talking about. Yeah. Anyway, thank you all for your contributions on that aspect, which is the abductions. That's the reason why we are having this topic today. That issue was so pressing that we needed to address it. It's a hot topic. So I'm happy to hear what you all had to say on the matter. And I believe the consensus is that no one should be abducted and that everyone has a right to creative expression. Now, let's proceed to something slightly different, which is cancel culture. I don't know whether it's the encyclopedia that defines it or Google, let's just say Google defines cancel culture as a cultural phenomenon in which an individual thought to have acted or spoken in an unacceptable manner is ostracized, boycotted, fired, or assaulted, often aided by social media. So I'm thinking of some examples here of people who are cancelled. We had R. Kelly. There was the Mute R. Kelly movement, and I actually joined that movement. I joined that movement. I stopped listening to R. Kelly songs after I watched the documentary Surviving R. Kelly. I was like, I'm not going to assist this pedophile in getting rich. Another example has been J.K. Rowling, because she holds gender critical views on transgenderism. And some people have boycotted the Harry Potter series because of cancel culture. So, cancel culture is a form of censorship that comes from people, from the public. Now, it's not a censorship that's coming from the government or from the president or from a company like what Facebook or YouTube does with some content on there. This is a form of censorship or a curtailment of the freedom of speech that comes from the public. What do we think about cancel culture? Do we support cancel culture? Do we think it is a good thing, especially now that we have social media and everybody is up for grabs? Oh, yes, I see Tehuti's hands up. Go ahead, Tehuti, welcome.
Yeah, hello.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Happy New Year. Cancel culture is the worst thing that has happened to humanity in the past several years. It's basically someone telling you or people agreeing on how people should behave, what they're allowed to say, what they cannot say, because some people over there or over here are too sensitive to take it. Like there are certain jokes you cannot make anymore. And let me ask you, you said you may boycott R. Kelly, ngoma zake. Whatever was happening, like I do not agree with his relationships with those girls, whatever he was doing. But maybe he was a victim of the environment. He was I don't want it to seem like I am defending him. But if we go back a while ago, it was allowed, and also the parents of those children were the ones who actually made it happen. Or how do you say it? Enabled it. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Tehuti. You are against cancel culture, even though it somehow seemed at some point you are defending R. Kelly. But I would like us to separate what I did with regard to this particular case and my overall position on cancel culture, because I hold a similar opinion to yours on cancel culture. But I'll explain myself when it's my turn to speak. Yeah, I don't know if you had something else to add, Tehuti. Ama uko sawa?
I think society has evolved to be, it has become too sensitive. I don't know. Like, people can't even take a joke anymore.
Okay. Thank you, Tehuti. Yeah, I agree with you there. We have become too sensitive. Great. Let's hear from Morioki on cancel culture. What is your take, Morioki?
Thanks, Trokas. First of all, I believe in second chances. I believe everyone deserves a second chance. We all make mistakes, and we should be given a chance to rectify them. Like now, R. Kelly is in jail right now. You don't know how he's in jail and how he'll come out if he ever comes out. So I believe in second chances. So when you mute him, he had some good songs. He has songs with a good message. So muting him, it solves nothing. That's not a solution, because it will solve nothing. Even Michael Jackson, if you mute them, it can't undo their mistakes. So yeah, so give people a second chances. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, thanks.
Morioki is arguing for a second chance. Is there someone else who would like to chip in on cancel culture? And just to expound on it, we often see cancel culture when we talk about Islam. You remember criticisms of Islamic figures. They are often met with very drastic responses from those people. Remember the cartoon that was drawn of that French journalist? It's not the French journalist that was drawn, they drew Mohammed. And the Muslims wanted to cancel the individual. Actually, somebody killed him, which now traverses into a real crime that was committed, a physical harm that was done. But there was still massive support from Muslims who said that cartoon should not be depicted by other journalists. That's why CNN, The Guardian, BBC, etc., whenever they were showing the image, they pixelated it, because that idea was cancelled. So, yeah, we see it with Muslims, we see it with geopolitical issues, the Palestine-Israel conflict. People have been cancelled because of the positions. If you are pro-Palestine, or if you are perceived as a Zionist in some quarters, that can be politically incorrect, and you can get cancelled for it. Or there's also the trans issue. There have been many professors that have been denied tenure or they have lost their jobs because maybe they misgendered somebody or they held gender critical positions. So that caused cancellation. And then there have been myriads of other cases, other, small issues here and there, where a celebrity just says something small and then, whoop, they are cancelled. Here in Kenya, we have Shafi Weru. I think for those of you who used to listen to radio stations, he's been on many radio stations, but for the longest time, he was on Kiss FM, and he was cancelled because of what he said about women. The guy up to now has never been hired by anybody. He's been cancelled everywhere. So those are some examples. What do we think about them? Do we think that the public did the right thing to cancel such individuals? Or do you believe there's no place for cancel culture? Good, I see more hands are up. Deve was first and then Luchabeleli.
Cancel culture, I don't know if it is about retribution or correcting a wrong, but sometimes it's neither here nor there in whether it is right or wrong. But I think we are scrambling to find solutions or to settle at a moral where a wrong has, or we see that a wrong has been righted and the retribution has been meted on the wrongdoer. But I don't know whether we are doing more good than harm. It's just a sign of what we are struggling with. That is cancel culture. While at the same time, we do understand wrongs that were committed long time ago. That for sure we do recognize, but then it is what kind of retribution. Maybe that can really go off the rails. So I really, most of the times I just watch it in awe. But I watch it in awe. But also you are going to notice that there are people who are not touched by cancel culture. You mentioned Hebdo Medea, the firing of when they set a place, that newspaper place in Paris, in France. I don't remember the town of Paris exactly, but anyway, I don't feel even cancel culture dare touch Islam. That is a problem. We still can't touch it. Thank you.
Actually, the cancelling I was mentioning was from the Muslims. The Muslims are the ones that wanted to cancel critics of Islam. Yeah, people are too afraid.
They usually do that very successfully. So we really can't go. You can go and down all kinds of statues of people from long ago, but we can't touch Islam. No?
Yeah, that is quite unfortunate. It shows you how much fear has been instilled in the masses regarding that faith. And in fact, I wanted to bring this out when we were talking about Ruto and the abductions, extrajudicial abductions or processes. I think the idea behind such behavior is to instill fear in the public. This is the reason why one of us here was worried, like, hey, are we going to be safe when we talk about these things? Are we going to be safe? We have already lost the freedom of speech battle. When we are getting to that level where we are worried that, are we safe? We have to defend our rights to express ourselves freely. We have to define. We cannot cow under fear, which is instigated in an unlawful way. Yeah, so that's what I can say on how we fear Islam. And in fact, Islam uses that, it wields that power against the public, that cancel culture against the public, and it causes us to let bad things continue in the name of Islam because you cannot touch it. So unfortunate. Great. Next is Luchaveleli. Go ahead.
Now, thank you very much, Dorcas. Now, when it comes to cancel culture, I've seen most of you are actually saying that it's a new thing, or probably people are becoming more sensitive, which I will very much like to differ. And I think I'm a sucker for history. You know, I usually geek out when it comes to history. Actually, cancel culture has been around us, has been with us since we started civilization. It just went by different names over time. And the word cancel culture, it's the new thing. The word is new, but the practice itself, the action itself is nothing new. When we look at ostracism that went down in Greece, you know, in Greece, when we realize someone might be probably having harmful ideas that probably might seem to, you know, indoctrinate the youth, as a society, we used to sit down and then we vote the person off. When we vote them off, we just send them away. We have nothing to do with him, his work. So if he was a carpenter, no one buys his stuff. If he was a fisherman, no one buys his fish. We just isolate them. And when we reverse time further, when we move further back during the Stone Age, when we started to sit down as probably villages, because we were social creatures then, when we realize someone is not conforming to what we want as a community, we will simply isolate them. And isolation back then meant death. It was actually a death sentence. So number one, if you are isolating them, they will probably won't really have any food to feed themselves. Probably they won't have any security. If it's a foreign tribe, they will find them and kill them off in the woods. It's not our problem. So as time went by, it came and started having different names. The Greeks called it ostracism. In Catholicism, it was called excommunication, like what the Catholics did to Martin Luther. You know, Martin Luther was initially a Catholic priest. Now, when the church realized that his ideas would literally harm the Catholic faith because he was calling out the corruption in the church and all that, what did the Catholics do? They literally excommunicated him. It set him away. It sent him far away out of their lands. Go into Germany or wherever, but don't come back to Rome. That was cancel culture back then. Now, again, fast forward, we came to during the Cold War time. We had the Red Scare in the U.S. When you are suspected to have any ties with communism, whether it's rumors, when someone says that this person is probably a communist, you will literally be isolated. The community will have nothing to do with you. Again, right now, we have the digital media, whether you are a celebrity, whether you are a company, whether you're anything else. Once the same society sits down and then they realize your ideas or whatever you're selling us, or even your past activities doesn't sit well with us, what will we do? We just cancel you. We have nothing to do. If you're a musician, we don't want your music. If you're a company, we won't buy your stuff. We will boycott your stuff. So it's not really fixated towards artists. It's not really fixated towards R. Kelly and all that. It's something. It's literally been with us. We just change the labels, but it's I think it's part of us. So to me, I usually look at these things in society and I sit back as an observer. I say, I think, you know, it's it's quite enjoyable to literally just observe these things, and and sometimes I do take a stance, sometimes I never take a stance, I just observe. But now it depends. When you're dealing with people like R. Kelly and probably unlike Muruki, which it's okay. It's well and good. It's actually okay that you actually look at people, they can change, it's second chance and all that. Personally, once you're a predator and evidence has been brought forth, I won't really think that we will really be doing any good when we send you to jail and you're still earning the royalties. They're called royalties, right? like every time we're playing your music, you get some earnings, but we realize that you are a danger to society. You are a predator. You're actually preying on young girls and all. It's weird. It personally, it wouldn't really sit well with me listening to some of your songs. And then at the back of my mind, I realized that, wait, what? You were a predator. Same way, when it comes to a restaurant, we had some restaurant here in Kenya that evidence was brought forth. It was actually a leakage that it was owned by probably foreigners, probably Kenyan Asians or something, that they were actually being rude on their African employees. So it's sort of like racism. And you expect me to come back to that restaurant and order food and then eat and enjoy the food, while at the back of my mind I'm like, you guys are actually mistreating people of my own race, and you think I would really think of canceling you or boycotting whatever you're selling? Do you think it's right? So probably you don't have a problem with that, but to me it depends. If it's valid, if there's evidence that this person is controversial, then personally I won't have anything to do with you unapologetically. I would cancel you. Whether it's your music, I'll stop listening to it. If you're a cloth brand, I won't buy your clothes. If you're producing movies, I won't equally watch your movies. Same way, I used to grow up, I used to love this movie called Smallville. It's not a movie, it was a show, Smallville. It used to depict a story about Superman while he was in high school and all that. And I think up to around 2010, between 2010 and 2015, one of the actors, it was found out that she was involved in the child trafficking sex ring, I think. And in as much as I loved, I used to enjoy the show. Every time I try to watch it and then I see, I'm like, I just stop enjoying. And when you're dealing with somebody like R. Kelly, it doesn't matter. You can be an artist, you can be the greatest person on earth, but once the truth has come out, that and evidence is there, keyword evidence, it's not based on rumors, that you are actually a danger to society, then I won't really have anything to do with you. I will literally cancel you. So it's very much natural. It's not a new thing to cancel people who are deemed harmful to society. When it comes to people like even J.K. Rowling, I think it's okay. She has her stance. She's against the trans people and all that. Personally, I grew up reading Harry Potter books and all that, and I still read those books. But the the author herself, I don't really like her because of, yeah, she's transphobic, and it doesn't sit well with me. Once I realize things are not really, I personally cancel that, and I don't really think I'll apologize for taking such a stance. So yes, cancel culture, it depends. If it's valid on valid grounds and reasons why they should be cancelled, it's okay. For instance, we can also talk about misinformation. We had the Dr. Sebi dude who used to tell people that, you know what, cancer is actually caused by foods, people who eat meats. So if you eat fruits and you eat seeds, you know, you will actually recover from stage 4 cancer and all that bullshit. These are people who are a danger to society. So isn't it logical that such people should be cancelled because they deliberately produce harmful information to society, information which would hurt others? So yes, in as much as I'm for free speech and all that, and yes, I will very much agree with Dorcas that cancel culture is similar to censorship, and it's instead of the government doing that, is us as a society who do that, because again, we have the power. We are the ones who create governments. We are the one who creates laws. So it makes sense. We will ostracize you. We will excommunicate you, whatever the name you will call it, if we deem that truly you are a harm to society, or some of your views are dangerous and all that. Don't be shocked when people cancel you. Same way, I think I think Muriuki talks about second chances. Muriuki, let me ask you, if Hitler was alive today, would you really give him second chance? Because I realize that that's someone you really hate in this world. Um, Dude killed 2.5. So sources talk about 6, but valid evidence talk about 2.5, who are literally 2.5 they were literally killed and all through genocide and all that. Um, will you really give such a person a second chance because you truly believe on second chances? And funny enough, Hitler used to have, he used to have this friend called Hugo Boss. I think you've heard about the Boss design. It's it's a multi-billion-dollar designing brand. It's
One
a
minute
design.
left, Eugene.
Yeah. It's actually a designer. So yes, we have some Jews who want nothing to do with Boss design, because back to them, when they go back to history, Boss was the same person who used to design uniforms for the SS, the muscle for Hitler. So it usually makes sense. People have their reasons why someone or a company needs to be cancelled, and I have no problem with their views. So that's my stance. Thank you.
Okay. Those are Eugene's views, and he tried to give both sides. Now, let me also say what I think about cancel culture before we give our closing remarks. Let me turn on my video. Okay. Yeah. Because this is the last thing we are saying before we give our closing remarks. Cancel culture. I think everything that is controversial has two sides. We cannot write off something totally when it is controversial. There's always another side of the argument. It's a two-edged sword. So in this respect, I think cancel culture can be beneficial when the legal process is ineffective. That was the case with R. Kelly. What had happened was, because he's a powerful man, whenever cases were brought before the courts, he would go for an out-of-court settlement. He would pay them off and it would disappear. The case would disappear, or he would pay off some of the witnesses, or he would instill some systems in place to silence anybody that may give a testimony against him. Like, he was so smart. He was so strategic when he was engaging in his pedophilic behavior, because he made sure that he sealed all the loopholes which would incriminate him. So he was able to outsmart the criminal justice system. That's why over and over again, he would be brought to court and then he would be released. In fact, there was a song from the 90s. You all know I'm a sucker for 90s song. There was this one he collaborated with Jay-Z. Say, Jigga Kelly, not guilty. I got your money. You can't touch me, no, you can't touch me. So he used to, by the way, R. Kelly, if you observe all his albums and his songs, he uses his songs to talk about his problems. Like, if you want to know whether he's done something or he's not, he'll say it in a song. That's why he sang with Aaliyah, age ain't nothing but a number, growing up ain't nothing but a thing, because he married Aaliyah when Aaliyah was 16 years. And he made Aaliyah lie about her age. So he used to sing his life, essentially, R. Kelly. And he had become immutable. The law couldn't touch him. So women and rape, okay, let's call them, what is it? Child abuse activists, anti-child abuse activists had gotten frustrated. They were like, this guy is getting away with it. So our only recourse is media, either social media, YouTube, wherever. They said, let's mute R. Kelly. Let's stop listening to his music. Let's hit him where it hurts him the most. Maybe that will cause some change somewhere. Maybe that will bring justice in one way or another, because the courts had not worked. So in that respect, cancel culture can be beneficial. However, in other areas, cancel culture is highly problematic and is akin to censorship, which is, as I said earlier, a negative force. Uh, the first instance is when there's no due process. It's like a mob mentality. People just assume, as long as there's a whiff, those historic examples that Richeveleli was giving of how Martin Luther King was ostracized. Now, that used to happen with witchcraft during the witch hunts, the Salem witch trials. If it is just rumored, somehow you behaved in some sort of way to insinuate that you might be a witch, you would get cancelled, and actually they would lynch you. You would be killed. So it's the same thing in modern times, that people don't follow due process. They don't look at the evidence. They just jump to a conclusion on a matter, and then they cancel you. So that can be problematic. We always want to make decisions based on evidence. Secondly, I think cancel culture is a problem because it silences dissenting ideas. There are some issues at this moment that are still being figured out. One of them is that issue of gender. That issue of gender. What is a woman? We have that debate here on our platform, and everybody had a different definition of what is a woman. So these are new issues that we are still dissecting. So if we silence opposing views, then we will never engage, we will never get to a point where we have a healthy marketplace of ideas. Because, no, it is wrong to criticize these aspects of being transgender. It is wrong to criticize, to say that children should not be put on puberty blockers, or children should not consent. The children do not have the ability to consent to such a life-changing thing, or to sex-changing surgery at a minor age, anyone below 18. Those are reasonable. To me, those are reasonable things. If I am critical towards someone who just self-IDs as a woman and decides to go and play sports with biological females, I think that's reasonable for me to criticize that. I think it's very reasonable. Or someone who self-IDs and wants to go to a female-only changing room, and then he flashes his penis. I think it's reasonable for me to criticize it. But if you silence it and say, oh, that's transphobic, what you are doing is you are creating a narrow or a weak marketplace of ideas. We need to allow divergent ideas to exist. So if you cancel people for a new phenomenon, it just started, by the way, in the mid-2010s. This whole fiasco started in the mid-2010s. It's still new. So let's not rush to cancel people on issues that are just developing. The Palestine-Israeli conflict, or what is happening in Gaza at the moment, those are things, yes, it's been historical. It's been a historical issue, but the new developments are just coming up. Whatever occurred in 2023, those are different dynamics that have been added. So let's allow a divergent pool of ideas. Let's not be so quick to silence it. It becomes an oppressive society when we do that. Until we say, this is how you're supposed to think. No, not when it's such a divisive, a morally divisive issue that is still being determined. It's being carved out. Yeah. And lastly, I think cancel culture is a problem because it is disproportionate to the crime. Often you can find that somebody might be, the examples I gave of R. Kelly and blah, 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 those ones are a big deal. But there have been people who've been cancelled over very minor things. you lose your entire profession, your ability to eke out a living simply because of this minor thing. You know, cancel culture does not allow for nuance. It's not like the court of law, which adjusts punishments based on the crime. It is proportional to the crime. But with cancel culture, you are just cancelled, no matter how trivial or how huge the thing is, and it continues with you for life. You know, it's kind of like hell, the concept of hell, where it doesn't matter what sin you committed, you're just thrown in there. You go and you are tortured forever and ever. It's just disproportionate to the crime, and that becomes a problem. And then lastly, cancel culture can create matters for silenced voices. If people are not allowed to say certain things because they are politically incorrect, you know, it's called PC culture, politically correct culture. If they're not allowed and they're cancelled from mainstream media platforms, they might be perceived as martyrs, and then they could go on actually to become successful and to mobilize. You've given them a matter, so now they mobilize that group. We have examples of Ben Shapiro. Some of you know him. We have the examples of Andrew Tate and other alpha male guru examples. Because they have been cancelled, they now appear to be even more legitimate amongst silenced voices. So it doesn't work in the end. I think there are more points against cancel culture than for cancel culture. So that's where I stand. Now, let's listen to closing remarks, guys. It's 1:15 a.m. If we can finish in the next 15 minutes, if you can give your closing remarks on this whole debate of freedom of speech versus censorship. What have been your lessons learned today, or what is your bottom line position on this topic of freedom of speech versus censorship? Muriuki, you've had your hand up for a while. Please go first.
Thank you, Dorcas. Okay, what I want to say, I think all crimes are wrong, but I think R. Kelly, P. Diddy, Michael Jackson, they're satisfying their sexual desires. It's like they can't control their sexual desires, and we're all sexual beings. So their crime is being unable to control their sexual urges. But now Hitler was a killer, so it's all wrong. But Hitler was killing people. R. Kelly it's like he has so much power and he can't control his sexual urges. So he's powerful, he has music in him, so he has the power to take advantage of people. So those girls, they like him, they come to him, then because of his body, he has sex with them and starts a business because people like sex. So his crime is being unable to control something natural. So I think that crime is not like Hitler. Yeah, so then also like R. Kelly, he had a song called Bump and Grind. Now, Bump and Grind is very sexual. Now, for me, that song should be banned. It's still there, in fact, Bump and Grind. It's about sex. They're half naked. But now, I Believe I Can Fly. I Believe I Can Fly is very positive. So I'll choose I Believe I Can Fly and skip Bump and Grind. Yeah, so thanks. Then, yeah, that's it. Thanks.
Wow, Morioki. You now want us to ban songs. There, you will die on
Bump
that
and Grind.
hill alone.
Bump and Grind.
It doesn't matter.
Bump and Grind.
So what, Morioki? There are so many more explicit songs. Like there's so many explicit songs in the world beyond Bump and Grind. Bump and Grind is child's play. There are others that are so extreme, especially in the dancehall scene, even rap. If you listen to a lot of rap lyrics, they're really, really sexually explicit. But I'm sorry, that is censorship of the highest order.
Why mute Doctors, why mute everything? Why mute every song? Why mute everything? Why mute everything? Why mute everything?
Who is muting everything? And what is everything?
No, R. Kelly, see, R. Kelly, there was this thing you said, mute R. Kelly, that his song shouldn't be played. And I'm saying, don't mute everything, mute like bump and grind, because that shows, that's his life. Having sex with women. Yeah.
Now, here, Morioki, my position has changed on the matter, on the mute R. Kelly issue. I think because he has been brought to justice. You see, I felt it was necessary for us to have a mute R. Kelly movement because the law was doing nothing. And yet the evidence was there. There were over 50 witnesses in that documentary that showed how R. Kelly had abused those teenage girls. And some of them were prepubescent, actually. But then the law has taken its course and he's being punished at the moment. He's being punished. Personally, I might not continue to support his establishment, but I no longer see the relevance of the mute R. Kelly movement because he's been brought to justice. So you are not making a discretion between doing it because of the crimes he's committed vis-a-vis explicit lyrics. That's your taste. That's your personal taste. It's not the actual physical harm he has caused to these girls that he abused. So there's a very big distinction between those two.
No, Dorcas, Eugene said that he benefits still. If you watch his songs, he benefits. And that's what Eugene said. He still gets royalties if you watch.
No, at this moment he doesn't because he's in jail. He's in jail. But I do see merit in that argument that there's no need for me to patronize somebody who I disagree with in terms of their values. So I do see merit there. But personally, I think he's being punished. He has faced the full force of the law. He's being punished. So, yeah, it is what it is. Okay. The next person, I don't know whether it was Tehuti or Ndebe, but I think let's go with Tehuti.
Okay. R. Kelly, in terms of R. Kelly, whoever owns his masters, that's where his royalties are going to. They don't necessarily go to him. Maybe he doesn't own his catalog. And when it comes to Ruto, I will say truth is poison to all frauds. And whatever people are doing, whether they're putting him in a coffin or those silhouettes, they're expressing how they feel. So they shouldn't be persecuted. If it doesn't eat him that people are tired of you to a point where they want you dead, that's the message. It shouldn't be taken literally. When it comes to the Sheikhs and the Muslims cancel culture, the Arab states, they have Sharia law. They're basically government and religion mixed, so it's very hard to cancel Islam. And do you think when it comes to R. Kelly, can you separate art from the artist? If we believe artists are vessels of art, and I believe Michael Jackson was innocent. Morioki, you've said they were satisfying their sexual desires. R. Kelly, pedo, likes them young. I remember an interview I saw, he was with Aaliyah. And I didn't know Aaliyah was that young. and they were talking about their relationship. Even married her when she was like 15, which is very creepy. Michael Jackson, I believe he didn't have a normal childhood. That's why he had the Neverland Ranch, so he could experience how it feels like to be like a kid. I don't think he was a pedophile. And years later, those kids grew up and they confessed that they were made by their parents to speak, to make up those allegations so that they could be paid. Anyway, yeah.
Aha. Hey, now we are going into these musicians controversies. Hey, but I'm really tempted to say something about Michael Jackson, but let me not go there because we are really out of time. So let's try and summarize. But thank you, Tehuti, for your views. Next is Deve.
Thanks, Dorcas. As for our freedom of expression, we have to exercise it. Because let me tell you, we slip just one little bit and we might not be able to recover it. So, yeah, let's help the Gen Zs and the people that are expressing it and exercising it. You should exercise it at your place. I mean, if it is at work, in matatus. I know in Kenya sometimes it's so hard to express. Well, you know me, just me, I would say something, and I was in a matatu, and I think every time I went into a matatu, I said something that somebody just didn't like. And it's usually had to do with speeding and just careless driving. And they just didn't like it. And nobody supported me. The passengers just didn't support me. And I always used to think, am I the only person that's carrying a life here? But anyway, yeah. So you might express you might exercise your freedom, but you might find that there is no support anywhere, which is just too wrong. But do I say, yeah? So if we don't exercise it, we're probably going to lose it. We should exercise our freedom of expression. We should give our opinions. There is something very wonderful about opinions, because when people express opinions, you're going to learn something. Something is going to be an eye opener when you hear another person's. You could actually think that, oh my goodness, I did not think that that's how Jimmy is brilliant like that, or it could be the opposite. Yeah, so these things are good. Let's exercise them. Thank you.
Well said, Deve. We either exercise them, use them, or lose them, in other words. By the way, I wanted to respond to something Tehuti said about canceling Muslims. No, that's not what I was saying. It was the opposite. No one can touch Muslims because they have these laws. They have these laws which they call blasphemy laws. So you cannot touch a Muslim. It's the other way around. It's Muslims who cancel people that criticize them using this word called Islamophobia. We had that discussion on our YouTube channel. Please go and check out that aspect of Islamophobia on our channel, is criticizing Islam discriminatory. So it's the Muslims that cancel anybody who is critical towards Islam. They've been given that privileged status even in Western countries. That's why atheists like Richard Dawkins or Sam Harris are perceived as Islamophobes, because Islam has a special claim to criticism. You know, in the marketplace of ideas, it kind of says, do not touch us. Anybody else can be criticized, but not us. And I'm saying that's not right. Everybody should be criticized. And they're the ones that use cancel culture against their critics.
I didn't get it fast. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. Sawa, sawa. I'm glad we are on the same page now. Great. Let's hear Luchaveleli's closing statement.
Thank you very much, Dorcas. It's actually been a great discussion from the free speech, the advantages of it and the limitations of it. Also equally with what's the other word? Censorship, yeah. It's equally important. Not personally, I wouldn't really, take censorship as a bad thing. There is actually some limit or some occasions where censorship actually matters a lot, but not entirely. Censoring everything just because of dissenting voices, that doesn't make any sense at all. Now, when it comes to cancel culture, I still maintain that, I'm still halfway. There is need for it, and there is need not to go extreme for it. For instance, we can measure on specific cherry-picked issues like the celebrities, like the transphobic doctors, perhaps, but we can also miss out on the bigger picture. I've also had most of you say that, we've never had actually Muslims getting cancelled. I think most of you know about Zair Naik. He's an imam, he's a doctor who preaches pseudoscience and glorifies Islam. Apparently he's from India, but he's been cancelled in India. He's been cancelled in Pakistan. He's been cancelled even in Canada, I think. And he has his own TV station called, I think, Peace TV, which it teaches about, pseudoscientific stuff, Muslim science, something of the sort. If it's his own creation jargon, where Muhammad split the moon, where he debunks evolution according to him. And also he's been cancelled on the grounds that terrorists actually listen to Peace TV, funny enough, ironically or paradoxically, before committing the acts of, terrorism. Listening to Peace TV, which doesn't make sense. So he's been cancelled for such grounds, and he's actually wanted. So yes, as a Muslim, he's been cancelled. And the other way around, in Muslim countries, you can actually get cancelled, and you know how they cancel you. If you're an atheist in the extreme countries, you get cancelled by giving you a death penalty. It's extreme, but that's another form of cancelling. It's cancel culture according to them. So I think they are not safe, whether Islam, whether Christian. I think it cuts across. So my point is, it's not really a new thing. It's not really about transphobic people. It's not really about, R. Kelly and his pedophilic tendencies. I think it's as natural as any other thing. It's part of human behavior in society and all that. Like, people will group, the left will group and say, you know what, let's cancel the right guys. And the right will group and say, let's cancel the left guys. Right now, Trump is coming into power, right? And when he wasn't in power, we had the Democrats and the extreme, the extreme left. They were canceling most of the people who were on the right. Now the right is coming into power. Trust you me, they'll cancel the extreme left as well. So it's payback. It's actually, it's sort of like our behavior. It can't really stop right now. In as much as we may say that let's end cancel culture, it's like right now we have the Ruto regime, and we have people who don't like that regime. When they come into power, they'll start to frustrate that regime. It's payback. Like so you can imagine, like for example, during Biden's time, they used to say that, you know what, let's cancel all these toxic masculinity folks, all these transphobic folks. Now these same people are now coming into power. What do you think will do to you who are progressive? You who are saying that, you know what, equality, feminism and all that, you'll get cancelled as well. So it's all about, to me, it's all about power play. It's all about who has the guns, who has the control, and all that. So that's all I can say. Like, but it's here with us, and I usually just sit and see how things unfold. But that's just me. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Eugene has maintained a sort of distant approach to cancel culture, or rather a realist approach to it. he does not endorse, neither does he shun it. He just thinks it's a human phenomenon. Now, I wanted, is there any other person who had a closing statement? Okay. So let me give mine and we call it a night at 1:33. Freedom of speech versus censorship. I think there have been many lessons learned today, but the one I think should stick in our minds is that we should allow a marketplace of ideas to flourish. If we must moderate content, let's moderate the style of debating or the style of discourse, but not the content. All ideas are up for grabs. Like Voltaire said, I believe he's a French philosopher. He said that I may not agree with your point of view, but I will defend your right to have it at all costs. I've paraphrased a bit. So I might not agree with the alpha male gurus, but I don't think they should be cancelled. Yeah, I do not think they should be cancelled. I don't think we should go around picking which ideas people should hold. I think everybody has a right to think for themselves. However, I draw the line when those ideas will cause harm to the public. So if it's going to cause harm in terms of war or violence, incitement to violence, that definitely needs to be curtailed or censored. Or if it's going to cause harm in terms of the medical component, then that should be curtailed. But hurting somebody's feelings, no. Even as a feminist, speaking as a feminist, I'm often offended by the manosphere guys. They often offend me, but it's their right. It's their right to hold that view. My offense should not be the basis of infringing on another person's right to freedom of speech. I think freedom of speech is not absolute, but I think that right is more important than protecting people's feelings. We've become too sensitive as a global society, especially with social media, which encourages everybody to have an opinion. We've become too sensitive and in the end, too intolerant. I think we need to become more open-minded and we need to be able to engage with people that hold divergent views from ours, as long as it's not causing physical harm, direct physical harm to us, then we need to be tolerant. That is my lesson learned from today's discussion. And on the political issue of William Ruto and the Gen Z abductors, there's nothing there to defend the government by. Nothing. Even those parents who are saying, oh, children need to learn good manners. I challenge that mindset of blindingly obeying parents, authority, or senior people, especially when they do stupid things. No, there's nothing to defend William Ruto there or the government. There's nothing. These youth are well within their right to criticize, to satirize, and to caricature the president, even if it involves a coffin, as Morioki kept drumming it. No. We need to challenge those superstitious mindsets. Nothing is off limits. If we are a democratic country, nothing is off limits. So that is it. Thank you so much. I forgot to make an announcement at the beginning. We are having our hangout this Sunday. So please, if you are within the Nairobi area, or even if you're in the outskirts, but you can travel to the hangout this Sunday at 1 p.m. Arboretum Park. We are getting together for some food, some fun, some laughter, some icebreaker games. We'll do a short walk. Arboretum is small, so the walk is just going to be around 20 minutes max. And then for the rest of the time, we'll be engaging with each other. And there's also a focus topic. How has my thinking changed ever since I joined the SAS-K community? So guys, let's meet there physically. Those who are able, let's get to know each other. And remember, if you're a closeted atheist, you can opt out of photos. That should not keep you from any of our hangouts. So guys, asante sana for your contribution. Thank you, Lucheveleli, for the research and for the input you've given on all the subtopics. Thank you, Ndeve, for asking us thought-provoking questions. Thank you, Murioki, for holding brief for the conservative side. Thank you, El Maiso. Thank you, Tehuti. It was good to see you, Tehuti. We haven't heard from you for a while. And I don't know whether there was somebody else who came in and logged off, but everybody who has contributed, thank you so much. I wish you a good night. See you on Sunday.
Good night.
Good night.